All right, and it just rolled over. So if we have a quorum and everybody's good to go, I'm going to call us to order and welcome everyone to the July 16th, 2020 meeting of the MCE Board of Directors. And Darlene, would you start us off with a roll call?
Absolutely. Belvedere.
Here.
Venetia.
Here.
Concord. Contra Costa County. Did I hear Contra Costa County, or was that someone else's background? Corte Madera. Danville. El Cerrito.
Here, Greg Lyman.
Fairfax.
Here.
Lafayette.
Here.
Larkspur.
Here.
County of Marin.
Here.
Martinez.
Here.
Moraga.
Here.
Napa, and all 5 Napa cities. Novato. Oakley.
Here.
Pinole.
Here.
Pittsburgh. Pleasant Hill. Richmond.
Present.
Ross.
Here.
San Anselmo. San Pablo.
Here.
San Rafael. San Ramon.
Here. Scott Perkins.
Sausalito and Mill Valley.
Here.
Solano County.
Here.
Tiburon.
Here.
Vallejo. Walnut Creek.
Here.
Thank you.
And I noticed Brad Wagon Connect was in the waiting room, so that will solve our Napa.
No, I'm here.
Oh, are you? You fought your way in. Okay, great, terrific.
Thanks, Brad.
Welcome. All right, any board announcements, anyone? Okay, hearing none. Going to move on to public open time for comments on items that are not on our agenda. Do we have anyone joining us from the public who would like to speak in open time? Okay, I'm not seeing any real hands or virtual hands or hearing anyone, so I'm going to assume no. Okay, Dawn, moving on to report from our executive officer.
Great. So yeah, I just have a couple of items this evening. I wanted to start off with a big congratulations to the town of Yountville, the 4th jurisdiction in Napa County to go 100% renewable with MCE Deep Green. Hooray! So big congratulations. Yountville is joining 24 other MCE communities who have committed to 100% renewable energy. So very exciting news.
I just had a meeting with the mayor of Yountville. I should have congratulated him.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations are in order. So great to have something to celebrate at the start of the meeting. So big thanks to Yountville. Next, I wanted to give folks a quick update on MCE's work sort of in the context of the pandemic and some our responses and how we are addressing some of those challenges. First of all, just a quick report on load impacts. So last time we met as a board, we really hadn't received data sufficient to determine what the impacts were going to be on MCE related to the pandemic. And what we've seen is as actual data has come in, and firmed up, we are, as expected, seeing a much higher than typical residential electricity use and a much lower than typical commercial use. They mostly are balancing each other out, but overall there is a slight reduction in load, around 4 or 5% is what we're seeing currently. It hasn't had a negative impact on the budget yet. We've seen energy prices being slightly lower than projected. That has helped a bit, but that may change as we're moving into the summer season, and commercial rates tend to be higher in the summer and lower in the winter. So our budget expectations were based on the typical commercial load for the summer. So we may see a variance from that this year due to the reduction in commercial load. We also are watching very carefully our uncollectible amounts or the delinquent accounts, and we have built in a projection of potentially higher uncollectible amounts this year. We are seeing a slight increase in delinquencies, but it's going to really be another couple of months before we're seeing the full impacts of April, May, and June. So we'll keep you posted on that. We are promoting the CARE and FERA program and the medical baseline program to our customers to help folks that are having trouble paying their bills, folks who may have lost their jobs. Signing up for those programs can help them keep their costs down. So we're promoting those pretty heavily, and we are seeing a noticeable uptick in enrollment in those programs. So that's good to see. We'll continue to spread the word. You all should all continue to let folks know about those opportunities for bill savings. And then next, we've got I just wanted to remind folks that the climate credit showed up on customer bills during the months of March and April, and that helped offset energy costs a bit. So we're hoping that had an impact. And we are continuing to offer free charging at our San Rafael office parking lot. And we've actually seen a really big uptick in usage there and charging, which is great because we, our grant required that we have a bit of that we report our charging, and we've seen a nice uptick just in the last month. So we'll keep you all posted on that. And then lastly, just to let folks know what's happening with our staff, we're continuing remote work for all staff and holding all of our partner meetings, transactional and community meetings remotely. And that will continue for the foreseeable future while we watch what guidelines are coming out from the counties in which we serve and from the governor as well. And then the next item, I just wanted to give a couple of minutes regarding the MCE PG&E joint rate mailer that went out on July 1st. Some of you might have noticed this coming into your mailbox or your email box. This mailer doesn't typically receive a lot of attention from customers, but if you get any questions, you can reach out to us and we can fill you in on some of the details. This is a mailer that that began going out to customers after legislation got passed in 2011 that was intended to kind of level the playing field and make sure that folks were getting accurate information at least once a year with a joint comparison between the CCA and the utility. And there are a few problems that have kind of developed from this mailer, but I won't spend a lot of time getting into those here. I'll just note that in the mailer, I think the positive thing to report is that we were able to get about half of our mailers out electronically. So of course that's good for the planet, fewer trees, fewer things going through the mail. And we got some positive responses from customers about that. And then also folks might have noticed that due to a generation rate decrease that PG&E put in place on May 1, their standard product showed up as the less expensive option compared to MCE, just by a little bit, but because of the power charge and difference adjustment, it means that our customers are paying just a bit more currently. That happens from time to time. We are expecting some additional rate changes from PG&E in the coming months. MCE has not changed rates since last year, so it's been a while since we've changed our rates. If you get any questions about that, feel free to refer them to us. Before I move on to the next item, do folks have any questions about the joint mailer or want me to get into any more details on that? All righty. And then the next item I wanted to let folks know about, and this is actually my last item, is we're going to be holding our annual board retreat on September 18th. We typically hold our annual retreat at this time of the year. This year it's going to be a virtual format, and we're going to do it on all day, well, not all day, but for about 6 hours on September 18th, which is a Friday. Because it's on a Friday, it'll take the place of our regular September board meeting, which would have fallen on Thursday evening, the 17th. So today you probably received a cancellation notice for that Thursday, September 17th board meeting. And you should have, or you will soon be receiving an invitation for that Friday, September 18th board retreat. And that's it for my report. Does anyone have any questions?
Are you going to deliver refreshments for the board retreat?
I wish we could. I was just thinking this evening as I get ready for the meeting, I was looking for, Darlene and Jessica's great popcorn spread and the chocolate chip cookies. I wish that we could get snacks to all of you for these meetings and the retreat especially. We will promise you a 1-hour lunch break, but you'll probably have to fend for yourself as far as what to do during that lunch break.
This is the worst part of virtual meetings, no snacks prepared by others. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Last month, Darlene asked for our home addresses. I thought that was what it was for.
I wish it was. We do have some things in the works, though, that will be coming your way around that time. Because we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year, we're going to be developing a special report that will be going to all of you, and we want to make sure you get it. So that's one of the reasons we asked for your addresses, so that we can get that important report to you without any delay.
Any other questions or comments from board members for Dawn? Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on our CEO's report? All righty, seeing none, I'm going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our consent calendar. We have 3 items on consent. Is there anything that anyone would like to discuss or revise that's on consent?
Madam Chair, I would actually like to pull consent item 1 and 2. Since I wasn't there, I will not be voting.
Okay, well, we can, we don't need to pull them, but we can take a vote. We can vote on them one at a time, Holly, so you can
Perfect.
abstain for each one and we have a clear record. Thank you for that. All right. And if there are no other comments, I'd appreciate a motion to approve item C1, the minutes.
I'll make a comment on C2 when we get there. In the meantime, this is Greg Lyman El Cerrito making a motion to approve C1.
Do I have a second?
Second. I can connect.
All righty. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to do a roll call vote. Yes, Darlene? You're muted, Darlene.
The answer is yes.
There she is. Okay.
Here I am. Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord, Contra Costa County, Puerto Madera, Danville, El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Aye.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez,
Abstain.
Moraga,
Yes.
Napa,
Yes,
and all 5 Napa cities. Thank you, Brad.
that's all of us.
Yes, all of you. Okay. Novato,
Yes.
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinot,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill, City of Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo, San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael, San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito, and Mill Valley,
Yes.
Solano County,
Yes.
Tiburon,
Abstain.
Walnut Creek.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. All right, on to item C2. And Greg, did you want to comment?
Yeah, maybe I didn't catch it on earlier ones, but I really appreciated the review table, and that the fact that these contracts are predominantly less than $2 million. So I really appreciate being informed in a timely manner about these contracts. So with that, I'm more than happy to move item C2.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Kevin Herhoff in Larkspur. I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. Any further comment? All right, seeing none. Darlene?
Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord, Contra Costa County, Corte Madera, Danville, El Cerrito,
Yes?
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Oops, sorry. Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Moraga,
Yes.
Napa, and all 5 Napa cities,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinot,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo, San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael, San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
Solano County,
Yes.
Tiburon,
Abstain.
Walnut Creek.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, and thank you everyone for hanging with the roll call votes. We have one more. This is why we really missed the snacks. On C3, it's the response to the Marin County Civil Grand Jury report. Any comments on that? And if not, someone would like to make a motion, that would be great.
C3. I'll move C3.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Sue Higgins, second.
Thank you. All right, Darlene, one more time.
All right. Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord, Contra Costa County, Corte Madera, Danville, El Cerrito,
Yes?
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
All right. Sorry, I'm really slow. Yeah, yes.
we got to get you snacks.
I clearly need snacks. Yeah.
Martinez,
Yes.
Moraga,
Yes.
Napa,
Yes.
and all of them. Thank you. Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinot,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo, San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael, San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
Solano County,
Yes.
Tiburon,
Yes.
Walnut Creek.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thanks, everyone. And let's move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is the transfer of fiscal year 2019-20 funds to the operating reserve fund. Vicken, are you kicking this off, or who's going to take the lead?
No, that will be Garth, our
Garth.
Director of Finance.
Terrific. Garth, I hope you're here somewhere. I can't see you on my screen, but I'm sure that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Come on, Garth.
Not seeing Garth.
I'm coming. Sorry.
There you are.
I had to turn my video on. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. And thank you. So This item is regarding a proposed transfer of $7.5 million into the operating reserve fund. And so a little history on this. Last November, the board passed a resolution, 2019-6, creating the operating reserve fund. And this is a little bit different than a standard cash reserve, a couple of ways. And importantly, it's created under an accounting rule, GASB 62, which allows us to defer current revenues, not just the cash, but the current revenues from one fiscal year to be utilized in a future fiscal year. So we effectively bank revenue in addition to the actual cash that we have earned. So, so why would we do this? So this is an effort to really strengthen MCE's finances in more ways than just pure cash reserves. So we've grown considerably. We have increased our load and sophistication of our finances, and being able to defer revenues allows us to really, in some respects, smooth out our net revenues. It allows us to bank revenue in years where, where we have strong revenues to be utilized in years where we might have some unanticipated expenses and so on. So a good example is last year. Last year we had a very strong year in terms of our net revenues. And so the concept here is to defer some of those revenues into a future year where we might have, where revenues are not as strong or might negatively be impacted by uncontrollable events. And so I think, this year is clearly a good example when we might be financially negatively impacted by the coronavirus. So while we don't fully know the impacts of the pandemic, both in terms of our reduced load and customer payment delinquencies, because that is certainly a concern that we have over time here. But we anticipate that there will be reductions in revenues, and we could use potentially this deferred revenue from last year to be used this year, but certainly, if not this year, some future year when we might need it. So we set this fund up last year. It has nothing in it currently. The way it works is the board, one, had to approve the creation of the fund. The board would also need to approve any deferral into the fund. And then later on, to actually pull revenue out of this fund, the board would have to approve that as well. So it's a very good tool for, it's really in many circles called a rate stabilization fund. So it would help us to not have to raise rates, for example, if our revenues weren't sufficient in a given year. And as I mentioned, it helps us smooth rates from year to year. So that's really what we're trying to achieve here. And so in talking about the fiscal impacts of this, if we defer $7.5 million into this operating reserve fund for the fiscal year that just ended, 2019-20, which ended in March, we'll reduce the contribution to MCE's net position by that amount, by $7.5 million. And that would be from about $8.7 million to $73.2 million for the last fiscal year. So a deferral of that amount into the fund will add a like amount to the fund. So we'll have $7.5 million of revenue sort of banked there for either this fiscal year or a future fiscal year. So the recommendation is that we defer $7.5 million into the operating reserve fund for fiscal year 2019-20.
Great. Thank you, Garth. Any questions or comments? Yeah, Greg.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, Garth, real quick. So the contribution would be 80 million. What would that bring the revenue, our reserve to?
Yes, Commissioner, that would actually allow us, as we anticipated, to hit our reserve targets, and our reserve levels would be approximately about $160 million.
Yeah, that isn't $80 million more than we actually anticipated for fiscal year ending March 2020?
Yes, it is. Yes.
It's pretty significantly more. Like I thought we were shooting for 60.
Yes, that's correct. We ended up doing quite a bit better in terms of in terms of expenses, but certainly on the revenue side as well, if you recall. So we had effectively 9 months of the rate increase that was instituted effective July of 2019. So again, we did do a budget. We did a budget amendment in the fall, but even so, our revenue stayed very, very strong until into March, and so ended up being quite a bit higher than we had anticipated.
What's the maximum amount that we can put into the ORF in any given year?
There is no maximum amount, so we could absolutely defer more into that fund now, and or we could defer less. It's really up to the board's pleasure.
How is the ORF reported? How is it visible to us over time? How will we know? I know you say we have to take action to remove money from that, but it feels like it's going to be under a mattress and we're not going to see it. So how will we be visible? How is this account going to be visible to us on an annual basis? He looks very still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Yeah, Garth, I don't think you heard that.
Let me,
Garth, yeah.
Director Lyman, maybe if I may, this is Vicky and Kasarjian, while we're given a chance for Garth to defreeze or something. So anything I don't know about the mattress example, Director, but this will be clearly a line item that you will have full visibility to. We would need to come to you with any recommendations on how and how much and by when to use it. So it's going to be in front of you all the time. So it's not commingled with anything else. This is a very unique board-approved line item that we need to abide by.
Yep, I recognize that. So Vicken, was the recommendation of 7.5 based on the fact that we met our target this year with the 80 million or the 73 million?
No, actually, it was based on what the, when your board passed the resolution, we did not have a number in our mind. But recently, after shelter in place, as we were thinking about this, Garth explained a little bit to you the exposures or the concerns we have about things that we're looking at. Our expectations were ballpark in that number when we first thought about it and created the request for approval item. Now, having said that, it would not surprise me if that number grows bigger in need. But so this is the time where we can actually do the execution of the transfer as far as the amount level. So if your board chooses to put a little bit more maybe in reserves, we can do that. You can do that. But our expectations were how much would we be exposed to in quasi worst case scenario or high concern scenario that we would need to use such funds with your approval.
Yeah, I certainly would love to discuss the value or the amount that we're putting into the ORF, whatever, I can't remember what that's the operating reserve fund. Because it seems like we could put more away as a result of how healthy we were in this last fiscal year. So I'm done with my questions and would love to participate in the conversation later.
Great, thank you, Greg. Director Perkins, did you have a comment or a question?
Do we have a future target how big this is going to grow? This is slightly under 2% of our projected revenues. So is there a target in the future?
Director Perkins, at this time, we do not have a target. It was a financial instrument, first of all, that we wanted to bring to the board in last November, and it was accepted pretty widely. So this time it is only based on the concerns that we have and how we progress. It will teach us on what to consider for the future with your approval. But at this time, we do not have a target.
Hi, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? This is Garth. I really, of all times for my internet to not only just have a glitch but go down completely. It just went down completely. So I have called back in, and I'm sorry I missed from the time I probably froze on your screen is what I've missed. So some probably that you were answering a question about what we were going. I guess the question that was asked to me was whether or not there would be visibility of the board in seeing what was in this fund and what it looked like. And if that question was answered.
Yeah, that's gone. And Director Perkins was asking if we had a target for the level of such fund.
Yeah, and no, there is no specific target at all. I mean, to the extent that we have the capability to put more funds in here, I mean, generally speaking, we'd want to do that, but there is no absolute target. I mean, it's not as if we are specifically targeting, you know, some percentage of our revenues, for example. We have those targets in our overall reserve and liquidity targets, but there isn't anything specifically that we're trying to target here in this operating reserve fund in terms of, you know, reserving revenues for future fiscal years.
I suggest that maybe at a future date, one of the subcommittees actually review and see whether there is a target. We have a target for our regular reserve. But I could see this as being 10% of revenues or something like that. But this is slightly under 2% this time. Do we have criteria for when it should be used?
No, there's no specific criteria. I mean, as mentioned, we did hit our targets in terms of our reserve and liquidity last year. And then if you recall, we adjusted targets up for future fiscal years in terms of, you know, our new goals for liquidity and for our net position. So this was set up really as a fund, not necessarily to be funded at a specific level, but to be funded when the opportunity is right to do that. And again, in those years where we have done fairly well in terms of our net revenues, we are moving a pace towards our other fiscal goals for liquidity and reserves. And so we say, hey, that was a pretty strong year. Maybe this will be sort of a good time. It's almost, you think of it as like a rainy day fund. But again, there is no specific target for that amount. We could certainly adopt one and try to reach that level over time. If again, revenues in any given year would allow us to do that, but currently there is no target. And this number of $7.5 million seemed to be reasonable. We could do less, we could do more, given how well we did in 2019-20.
Thank you. That's my questions.
Thank you. Director Withy?
Withy, Patterson, and Hariff in that order.
Thank you.
Yeah, I pretty much, this interesting conversation we've just had has pretty much answered all my questions. I was about to ask some of the questions that Director Lyman asked and some of the questions Director Perkins asked. I think the interesting aspect of this is that as I'm understanding this, and let me make this statement and then correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding, that what this does is allow us to have a reserve fund, some sort of cookie jar fund, to allow us to use to supplement in years where there's low revenues, actually without it compromising our reserve target liquidity targets. Is that basically what this is all about? And if that's the case, I'm fully supportive of this. And the only thing I would, to build on Director Perkins' comments, often one creates something like this, and City of Sausalito, we have a ton of these sort of things, you know. And what I've found is that often we have very clear mission as to what we're going to do and how we're going to put money into it, but we have no policies for how we're going to use it. And often it can then become somewhat ad hoc as to how you use it, as opposed to having at least some discussion up front as to how it's used. So that's a comment. My first question was, is my understanding correct in terms of how this particular vehicle is going to be is constructed and will be used?
Yes, it is. And sort of the slightly unique nature of this kind of fund is that, as you know, MCE has certain in our power purchase agreements, and if and when we actually issue our own debt, there'll be certain covenants that would require that we maintain net revenues at a certain level. And if we were to have debt outstanding and not be able to meet those covenants, because you can't just use cash you have in reserve to meet a revenue covenant. So we would be able to utilize this, this fund to enhance the revenues in those years, because we didn't actually realize the revenue in the year in which it was, actually earned. So that's really one of the primary uses for it. Again, in terms of having a target, and specifically, as mentioned, having parameters and rules around when we would access this fund, I think that's probably extremely that's appropriate in every way.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Right. Director Patterson.
Thank you. So I'm interested in increasing the amount that is proposed tonight. And I'm also interested in talking about the idea of not setting a ceiling or a floor, but actually having something like a rolling 5-year average that we could discuss, so that we accomplish that smoothing out on a consistent basis. And I definitely like the idea of having policy about when it would be used and in what manner. So if I understood the budget and the fact that we exceeded the projected revenues, I'm the sort of person that thinks you should put that money away. And that's why I would like to support an increase in the proposed amount.
Okay.
You have a suggested number?
Well, I heard that I think I heard correctly that there was a 60 number projected for the revenues, and it turned out to be 80. So I would say the difference between that, I would be no less than 10 million, and it could go as high as 15 million.
Yeah, those my numbers were, this is Greg Lyman, Elsford. My numbers were from memory, so I certainly would want Garth to verify.
Okay, my internet is back up, so it'll take me a second. But let me see if I can verify from a budgeting standpoint where we were budgeted in the budget amendment, and so. Yeah, well, my internet is up. It's not really functioning very well. So we have to obviously take action here. So my recollection is along the same lines that we were in our budget amendment. We were, think we were somewhere right around 60 million. I have actually a folder here. Let me see if I can pull it up. I apologize for the delay
while you're
here.
While you're researching that, I know that Kevin has his hand up.
Yeah, no, I know he does. And I don't think this is the only time that we could transfer funds into this particular fund. So I don't know that we need to get too concerned about having exactly the right number tonight. I think it's more an issue of, do we want to increase it, and by how much, and what are implications for other ways in which we might have intended to use those funds for a different purpose. But
if I could jump in, sorry.
We do. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say we do indeed have to. We cannot. We have to do it for the fiscal year. So
this is it. Okay.
So this is it. Yes, and this has to be audited, and so our audit is coming up. This is the last board meeting before the audit, so we do have to make a decision. But I do have the numbers up. So our approved amended budget was $60 million. We are we ended up with just over 80. So indeed, it was a $20 million differential between those two numbers. We did, when we brought the current budget, 2020-21, to the board, we had updated in a projected budget line showing that we were expecting somewhere around 71 million. So we sort of did inform the board over time that those numbers were going up. You know, by that point we had sort of January numbers. So, but by the end of March, and when we closed out the books, we ended up with, you know, just over 80 million in total. So, if that helps. So from the amended budget, it was 60 million. When we updated the board again in March, it was 71 million, and when we finally closed the books, it was 80 million.
Okay. Let me move on. We have a few more directors who'd like to comment. Director Harov?
Well, I think this is great. I just wanted to clarify, well, a couple things. First of all, we may be constrained by the calendar in terms of what we can do in terms of adjusting things at this point, but I did want to kind of endorse the philosophy that Elizabeth was expressing to the extent that we can push it up to the extent that we can in a reasonable way. That would be desirable. Earlier in the presentation, very early in the presentation, I think the comment, maybe I just misheard it, but that by taking these actions, it doesn't affect our current cash position. This is pretty much of a prospective accounting device that we're pursuing here, which is fine. But I just want to get some clarification on that, and a little more clarification on what you all think there is in terms of, you know, a risk profile in terms of decisions we might make about how far we push this, because this is all perspective. It's not cash in hand.
So when you say it's perspective, it's not cash in hand. Wanted to understand that, because, you know, we do have the cash, right? So we have the cash. We did earn $80 million. You were right in your comment about that this is an accounting procedure.
Right.
But in fact, when you look at the bank and our bank statements, this money is there. Okay?
It's a deferral. It's a deferral of revenue.
That's correct. Right. So what we will show in our financials, if we, for example, if we had deferred, you know, this, let's say it's $10 million, our increase to our net position for last fiscal year will not be $80 million. It'll be $70 million. Okay. But we do have the cash. And so it really is in many respects sort of the best of both worlds, right? We can use this as revenue in the future, but we do have the money. We have the cash. So
that I was just confused by what I thought I heard earlier in the presentation, that it didn't affect our cash position. It doesn't, in the sense that we already have the cash. It doesn't create an issue for the future.
Right. But when we report our financials and our revenues and so on, it looks lower, and you'll see this negative transfer, this minus number out of our revenues that goes into this operating reserve fund. So
yeah. I mean, to me, this sounds like a good risk management tool. So we should be doing it, and we should be doing it in an aggressive way.
Great. Director Wagon Connect.
There. I'm a little concerned about, you know, jumping to, this is, you know, our ratepayers' money that I don't want to necessarily just tie up for the future. There is some I'd like to think it through, and I'm moving tonight. I think we've got a good solid staff recommendation. I'm happy with that.
Director Withy, did you have an additional comment, or is your hand just up?
No, I did have an additional comment. This discussion has been extremely valuable. I get it now, as to what we're doing here. The question I have is, based on either 60 or 71 or 80, that 60 was the original budget, 71 was the revised budget, 80 million was where we ended up. We had a plan to increase net position in reserves by a certain amount for this, out of this 60 or 71 or 80. It would seem to me that anything above what we were planning to build could justifiably go into this fund. And so, Garth, what was our growth rate of our revised growth rate? I don't have the numbers in my head, sorry, but the revised growth rate of our standard reserve vis-a-vis our policy. And it seems to me that a number above 7.5 is still allowing our growth, our reserve policy growth that we planned. So why not put into the ORF anything that was above our planned growth reserve policy? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I mean, again, in this recommendation, I spoke with management about it. I didn't want to be, overly aggressive on this, and so suggested the $7.5 million. We sort of all agreed that this is what we would bring to the board for consideration. But no, we do at $7.5 million. We hit our target such as it was, for the end of last fiscal year. Again, now we moved our targets up, but we're absolutely on track given our pro forma and projections for the next couple of years to continue towards those new goals. So this deferral of 10 million or 7 million or 15 million is not going to kind of knock us off track to continue to go forwards towards those goals.
Director Patterson.
So it's a helpful discussion. I'm comfortable making a motion that we increase the amount to 10,500, that we then direct staff to come back with a proposal for policy for expenditures. And that would include also using a 5-year rolling average to maintain that amount. We can always adjust that. That's always something that is discretionary by the board. But I think by doing that, we give some sense of stability to it. I think this is a great idea because I think things are going to be very unstable in 2021 with the economy. And so I'm just looking at it as being a really smart, prudent, wise thing to do that we can do. Not everybody can do that, including the city of Benicia.
Thank you. Any other, Scott, Director Perkins, did you have another comment?
I just wondered if she would restate the number that she's proposing.
10,500,000. Did I say 10,000?
Yes.
I'm not used to the big numbers.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Director Thier from Tiburon had her hand raised.
She did, and then she took it down, so it was sort of a mixed message. Holly, did you have something, a comment that she wanted to make or a question to ask?
So my question got answered, but then I did have another question for Garth. Yep. Is from a staff perspective, is the 10.5 million a number that you would recommend back to the board?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. It's fine. It's not too much. I thought that 7.5, was a little on the light side given the kind of year we had last year. So I'm, pleased that the board is seeing fit to potentially increase it, and 10.5 I think would be fine.
Okay, then I have one more follow-up question. Is there a percentage that has been set in the past? And I apologize, I'm brand new, so I haven't had the full orientation. Is there any set percentage?
No, absolutely not. This concept we brought to the board last fall. It is this idea of a rate stabilization or operating reserve fund is pretty common among utilities. Again, for that reason. So there was no targeted percentage that we would put in. And again, it's really about when you have a strong year and you do better than you even budgeted for, that's the time that you put some money away, just like in your own budget at home. If you just, something happens and you have extra money, well, you want to maybe put that away. So that's really what's happened here. For those times when, revenues aren't as strong due to unforeseen circumstances. So there's no percentage amount. We could put nothing in for this current fiscal year. We could take money out this current fiscal year. Next year, we may have a better year and we decide to put more money in. So there is no guidelines around that, other than now, as clearly the board has requested that staff come back with guidelines as to when we pull money out of the fund and in what circumstances we would do that. So, so that's really it. There's no goal in terms of what that's funded at. And there are no guidelines as to when we put money in.
Thank you.
Director Haroff, I think. Director Haroff was next, I think. Yeah.
Haroff, Higgins, and then Perkins.
Thank you. And
yeah.
Director Sosa.
So I think actually we have. I think we actually have a motion on the table. So unless
we do.
Director Patterson wants to clarify, just because we got the numbers bungled up a little bit, but I think we ought to understand what the motion is, and I'd be happy to second that motion.
Great, thank you. We still have some folks who want to comment. Director Higgins?
No, I was just going to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Lots of seconds. All right. And then I know we had Director Sos. So we had someone else in line before. You go ahead. Director Sos?
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Kate. So Garth, just from a reporting perspective, is there any risk in going too high here? In other words, looking forward and from an accounting and reporting perspective, you recommended 7.5, and so I'm just wondering if there's any reporting risk in terms of going higher than that.
None whatsoever. There's nothing that there isn't. I checked with our accountants very specifically because I thought this type of discussion might occur and there might be a situation where the number would change. And we looked into it very closely. So there are no issues with the board, as I think I mentioned, in making the amount smaller or the amount larger. So it is totally up to the board's discretion as to what goes in there. Now, as your finance director, I would say you don't want to put $30 million in there, but that's some number. For out of last fiscal year, but some number around 10 or 10 to 15 or 10.5. This is totally fine.
And Garth, do you want to speak to if this would have any impact on our credit rating? I believe that having this fund in reserves is similar to having other cash in reserves. Do you have any concerns about it from that perspective?
No, just the opposite. Having set up this fund and having funded it is a credit strength, and will be recognized by Moody's and Fitch as such. So, they were pleased. Particularly Moody's was very pleased that we had set this fund up. They're curious about what we're going to put in there, and so again, this is absolutely a credit positive that we're putting money in there. In a year when we quite frankly can afford to do so.
Okay. Director Vasquez, did you have a question or a comment?
Both.
Good.
So, thank you. So if this policy hadn't come to us in November, this discussion wouldn't even be occurring. We'd simply roll with $80 million and have it that way. But since it did, and we didn't set up a guideline or a policy as to how much we're going to contribute to that or what percentage of additional revenue we were going to do, I really would favor what Brad's comment was about sticking with staff's recommendation. And then Mr. Perkins saying, send it back to a committee so they can have a discussion about it. And then trying to create policy on a Zoom meeting, to me, is difficult. So I would offer a substitute motion that we accept staff's recommendation.
Okay, let me finish with comments here. Director Perkins.
Yes, my comment to send it back to a committee, executive committee or whoever, was related to the policies that you were just speaking of. You know, is there a metric we can use to develop a target for this, you know, a percentage of revenue? And is there a set of criteria that we should at least consider in the future when we draw on this to level our revenues? My comment was not that tonight's action should be deferred. I actually like the higher number of 10.5 million, particularly considering the extraordinary year we had. We may not have another year like this for a few years in the future. The economy isn't doing the V dip that was projected, and so the recovery time is going to be slower than was projected back in April. And so we don't know the magnitude of the uncollectibles we're going to have and the people that sign up for the lower rate packages and things like that. So our revenue package next year is almost certain to be below what we projected. Now, whether our expenses are also low enough that we can maintain the balance that we were expecting, that's yet to be seen. But I think that this presents us a unique opportunity to fund this at a very substantial level that's meaningful. And I would move that can't make a motion now, I guess. We already have one.
We have two, actually.
Well, you have a substitute motion, but that hasn't been seconded. But and the original mover has not accepted the substitute. So I like the original motion of 10.5 million.
Great, thank you. Director Hara.
You know, I'll second the substitute motion for discussion at least.
All right, Director Hara.
The reason I raised my hand was just a reflection on the comment a few minutes ago about time sensitivity on moving forward with this. So to the extent that there are suggestions that we send this for this specific discussion to a committee, and maybe Garth, you can advise us about that. But it sounds like we kind of need to make a decision on this tonight. And I don't personally have a strong, my preference, since I seconded the motion that was first made, and I think that's actually the most prudent approach. You know, if it's the sense of the board to do something differently, you know, I'm not going to object to that. But I think we have an opportunity to make a decision tonight, and I think that the initial motion is the one that provides the greatest opportunities for managing our risks going into the coming year.
Thank you. Director Withy.
Yeah, I think we need to be cognizant, and hopefully, Garth, if I misstate something, please correct me. I think we need to be cognizant of something, that this is incredibly low risk, this decision, but it's we could end up not giving ourselves enough horsepower to make it a risk mitigating action. You know, we have only tonight to be able to move money in from the last year's revenue. If we don't do that, then we will not be able to fund the ORF or fund it only to a certain amount. My understanding is at any time we can actually use that revenue. So there's no risk by putting more in, other than were we to be violating, in my view, our reserve policy, which we've established, which Garth tells us we're not. So I fully support Elizabeth's motion. It would be, in fact, you could put 15 million in. It doesn't matter, as long as we're not violating our reserve policy, because we can always take it back out and use it at revenue for this fiscal year. And so it doesn't make sense to worry about this too much. I got a sneaky suspicion that Garth was being somewhat conservative and picking a low number. I think he indicated he'd be quite happy with anywhere between 7.5 and 15. So I'm fully supportive of Elizabeth's motion, and I really don't think we should be blowing this opportunity, sending it back to committees to pick a number, what we need, because we'd lose the opportunity. We wouldn't be able to do it for this last fiscal year. What we do need to do is figure out what the policy for its use is. But it's a board action to use it, as I understand it. Garth, what I just said, is that right or wrong?
Everything you said is correct.
So I fully support Elizabeth's motion, and I don't think we should end up having 2 votes here.
Thank you. Director Wagenknecht.
Oh, I always love listening to Ray's accent. So I have a question for CEO Weiss. Is this money planned? Was it planned in some other way? I just don't want to derail something else that was figured out and just purely do this on an accountant. I want to do it on what the big plan is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for the question. The answer is no. The difference between the 7.5 million and the 10.5 million is not significant. It does not have any impact on any programmatic plans. The 7.5 million to begin with was not intended for any other use other than to sit in the bank as part of our reserves. And I think that what I'm hearing from the board is a level of comfort with, not only putting some initial funds into this account, but increasing it slightly, and that actually is perfectly fine. Typically when we have a staff recommendation, we think carefully about the pros and cons, and what exactly is the right recommendation. And as Garth and Vicken said, we did take a slightly conservative approach in coming up with the number, since this is the first time that we've put money into this fund. We didn't want it to seem like we were going too far. We kind of looked at the bookends, if you will, of what room we had in the budget, and the 7.5 really was kind of on the low end of what we were considering. So I think that the suggestion that's been made to increase it to 10.5 million is very reasonable. Wouldn't cause any changes to the way that we're planning for our programs or our activities. It would simply put just a bit more into that account to be called upon on a rainy day. And as Garth was saying, it does actually provide a nice signal to the market that our board finds it important to save for a rainy day. I think that's an important characteristic of a board from a credit perspective. So yeah, I really don't see any downside in going above and beyond the staff recommendation in this case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Don.
I'm comfortable with that.
Director Vasquez.
Just a follow-up question. So it takes board action to take the money out, but during the course of the year, can you put more money in by board action?
Yes, you can put more money in, but again, the only parameter or restriction around that is it just needs to be done before the audit. And so again, we don't, the nature of MC's business is that we, don't see our actual revenues for a number of months until, after we earn them. So we waited till sort of the end of the fiscal year and then some time afterwards to really make a determination of how much did we really make last year. And so that's why we wait to the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, to have a really good sense of what our net revenues are going to be. And then so this year we made a recommendation of this amount, but we absolutely, if for example, this current fiscal year goes extremely well and better than anticipated, at any point during the year, staff could come back to the board and suggest that we put more in. But again, it would be from that current fiscal year's revenue. This is our only opportunity to take from last year's exceptional revenue and to defer that to a future year.
And that's because, Director Vasquez, that's because our annual audit is almost complete. Within the next few weeks, it'll be complete. So we can.
I understand the timing, the need to do it tonight. I just think that if we should go back to look at a policy as to when if it's mid-year or 3/4 of the year into it, and we realize we have, substantial revenues, as indicated earlier, that we thought it was going to be 70 million or 71, ends up being 80. That again, the chair should address and put it in a committee that talks about creating the policy. My concern early on was that we were starting to create a policy with just in a Zoom meeting. But I'll pull back my my substitute motion and go ahead and support Elizabeth.
Thank you, Director Vasquez. Director Sos.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a little uncomfortable. We had a considered staff recommendation that seemed reasonable and solid, and I guess these are unprecedented times, right? And we have to make decisions in unprecedented circumstances. And so while I think I'm okay with the 10.5, I too would like to see a little more structure around this discussion if we have it again next year. But given so I see this as a one-off, but that is appropriate under these circumstances. But going forward, I would like to have a little more.
Okay, all right. Any other comments from board members? I do need to check and see if we have any public comments. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to come back, and I thank you, Director Vasquez, for pulling back your substitute motion. So we do have Director Patterson's motion, which maybe for all of our tired brains, you should repeat.
So the motion was to fund the operating reserve fund for 10.5 million, and then to give direction to staff to develop a policy for funding in the future and how to spend it, when to spend it. And this isn't part of the motion, but the recommendation was to look at a 5-year rolling average, so that the stated purpose was to stabilize and smooth out rate changes. And if that's true, then that rolling average would help us do that. But the motion is to increase it to 10.5 million and direction to staff for policies.
Thank you very much. And Director Harif, were you the second on that one?
Yes, I was.
Yes, and you're okay, and you're seconding that again, correct?
Yes, I am. As stated by Elizabeth just a moment ago, that's the motion.
All right, great. Thanks very much. Let's proceed to a vote. Darlene, would you do a roll call?
Belvedere?
Yes.
Benicia?
Yes.
Concord? Contra Costa County? Corte Madera? Danville? El Cerrito?
Yes.
Fairfax?
Yes.
Lafayette?
Yes.
Larkspur?
Yes.
County of Marin?
Yes.
Martinez?
Yes.
Moraga?
Yes.
Napa and all 5 Napa cities?
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill, sorry, Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo, San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael, San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
Solano County, Solano County,
I'm sorry. Yes.
Solano, thank you. Tiburon,
Yes.
Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, everyone, for the very good conversation. And we will move forward with more conversation about parameters and policy and procedure going forward. But I think we've made a good step for this evening. So let's move on to item 7 on our agenda, which is the inaugural MCE Climate Action Leadership Award and nomination. Shalini, are you leading this conversation?
I'm not, but I'm happy to introduce the person who is.
Excellent.
Stephanie Chen joined our policy team in October. We're very excited to have her because she was most recently the Director of Energy Equity at the Greenlining Institute, which is a think tank in Berkeley addressing structural racism and investment in communities of color. And so from that rich background, Stephanie brings a lot of stakeholder engagement, great relationships, obviously great policy analysis. And so she's going to lead this item tonight. And we're really going to focus on, I did get a question from Director Kohler yesterday, and so I just wanted to address it now, which is that this award is distinct from the Charles McGlashan Award because that award is really aimed at internal to our communities. This award is aimed at policymakers, stakeholders, legislators who've really stuck their neck out for us on a policy level. So I just wanted to clarify that. And with Stephanie, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Shalini, for that warm introduction, and good evening, directors. My recommendation tonight is in 2 parts. First, the staff recommends creating the MCE Climate Action Leadership Award. And as Shalini mentioned, this award would recognize state or federal legislators who've been instrumental in supporting community choice and who are leaders in California's fight against climate change through local clean energy initiatives. This award would be similar to the McGlashan Award in the kind of commitment that it recognizes, but it would be different in that it would be reserved for policymakers. And second, should the board approve the creation of the Climate Action Leadership Award, staff recommends that the inaugural award be given to Senator Mike McGuire. Senator McGuire has represented Marin County and the North Coast in the California Senate since 2014. And during that time, he's been a tireless and outspoken champion for community choice. Senator McGuire has been instrumental in blocking anti-CCA legislation, including last year's AB 56. Given the Senator's record on community choice, on climate change, and on PG&E reform, all of these factors we think make an excellent candidate for the inaugural Climate Action Leadership Award if it is approved this evening.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie, and welcome. Glad to have you join the team. Any questions or comments from the board for Stephanie about this potential award? Okay, seeing none. I think it's a terrific idea.
I had my hand up.
I'm sorry, you go ahead. Yep.
Sorry. So I did raise the question yesterday, and thank you, Stephanie and Shalini. To me, this award looks very similar to the Charles McGlashan Award. It's a little different in who it's directed to, but I could see us annually going through this process of deciding who to award it to and maybe giving it to someone just because it was time to do it and maybe giving it to more than one. And so my suggestion was, instead of creating a new award, is why not start the process of doing a proclamation or a resolution that can highlight what these, and Senator McGuire certainly is worthy. I completely support that. But instead, highlight all his accomplishments and put that in a frame from our board chair that's awarded when we feel it's appropriate. And that may not be what others think, but I think rather than creating a new award, that might be something we want to start thinking about, because we do have some champions that have really assisted us. And I'm thinking more of legislators rather than policymakers, because the policymakers, to me, kind of gets to some of our Charles McGlashan Award types as well. Thank you.
Director Tier.
Yes, thank you. This might be a little counterpoint, but I thought that this award was a great idea. I think right now, looking at the work that needs to be done in the future and the work that's already being done on climate action specifically, that creating a leadership award for an individual who's made that significant impact to benefit CCA customers directly or through clean energy is something that is really important. My only other comment was, kudos to the selection of Senator Mike McGuire. He is a fantastic person to kick off the first award.
Thank you. Director Wagenknecht.
Thank you. I'm a 40-year teacher, and when I as a teacher, one of the things that you find is that you want to recognize the people doing the good stuff, and I like having an opportunity to look at the senators and the congressmen and the city council people and other people that are more broadly that are helpers in our little battle that we've found ourselves in at times. And I would like to reward them, and I would like to be looking out there for that. So I think both the award and the recipient are right on.
Great. Thank you, Brad. I like that gold star mentality you bring.
Kate, if I could just add one thing. We are actually we weren't planning on awarding city council members, mayors, or county supervisors, because we'd probably just go through our roster of our directors, and it seemed a little self-serving. So right now, that's not what we're contemplating, but feel free to change our minds.
I just like the idea of looking more broadly for allies in the world.
Director Athos.
Hi. I did definitely think that Mike McGuire is a champion and definitely deserves the award. I do like what Barbara was talking about, though, about and maybe it's something that could go in hand with the award. But some statement of exactly what it is that was done. So it isn't just a name of an award, but it really highlights, what the individual has accomplished. So I'd like to see it kind of go together, where there is something, few things mentioned on a sheet of paper that's signed by the chair that really represents what this person has accomplished. Because I think that could really be picked up by the newspapers and be made even more important for what the award means.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on this item? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve. I think this is a terrific idea. And we can certainly write lengthy proclamations about any award recipient. That's something we love to do. And I think certainly Senator McGuire has earned it. Brad Wagenknecht, did you want to make another comment?
This is
I'm just still moving both actions. That's all I was doing.
You're just making a motion? Okay.
I'll second.
Denise Apple, I'd love to second it.
Thank you very much. All right, let's have a roll call. When you're ready.
Thank you. Belvedere?
Yes.
Benicia?
Yes.
Concord? Contra Costa County, Corte Madera, Danville, El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Moraga,
Yes.
Napa and all 5 Napa cities,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo, San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael, San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Solano,
Yes.
Tiburon,
Yes.
Walnut Creek.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. So Shalini, what are we considering the timing of this award action that we may take now that we have a new award?
Right. Well, I believe that this is supposed to be part of MCE's 10-year celebrations that are occurring in September. And so we couldn't vote on it in September, so we wanted to vote on it tonight.
Understood. So September is when we'll take action. That's great. Thank you. And thank you, Stephanie. All right, let's move on to our last substantive item, which is item 8, customer programs update.
Yes, hi everyone. Good evening. My name is Alice Havener-Doughton. I'm Director of Customer Programs at MCE, and I'm here tonight to give a general update on some of the recent activities and accomplishments of our customer programs. And I do have a PowerPoint to share if, there we go. Thank you. Thanks so much. And can we go to the next slide, please? So tonight I'll be going over some of our customer programs. I'll be talking a little bit about our electric vehicle program, some of our programs that we offer to our business customers, and programs that we offer to our residential customers. And starting with electric vehicles, our MCEV charging program, this program offers $2,500 per port for new ports installed in workplaces and multifamily properties. And we have seen 535 ports installed in this program over the last 2 years, with an additional 550 more ports in progress right now. Our second program, our MCEV Income Qualified program, this program offers rebates on new electric vehicles to customers that qualify by income. We offer $3,500, and this program launched in Q2 of 2019, and 26 of our care customers have purchased new electric vehicles making use of this rebate. So to dive in a little bit more to our charging station program, like I said, we had 535 ports installed to date, and with those ports that are currently in reservation or in planning, through Q1 of 2021, it's likely that we'll have 1,000 new charging ports installed throughout our service area. This graph here shows the completion of those ports over time and shows what we typically see in programs, which is that it takes a little bit of planning and cultivating these projects before we really see the payoff. But we saw a lot of activity actually in this program in Q2 of this year, about 3 times the activity that we've seen in the past. And we look forward to continued high rate of project closeout now that we've cultivated a good list of projects in the pipeline. We've provided our customers with $722,000 in funding to date to support those ports, and we have an additional $1.1 million committed to support those projects that are in the pipeline. And one great piece of information that didn't make it onto this slide is we do a lot of activities to encourage our customers to opt those ports up to deep green. And of those 535 ports, 68% of them are on deep green for electricity service. So we hope to continue that trend, and we really like seeing our customers charging via Deep Green service. Going a little bit deeper on the rebates that we offer for car purchases. So we've had 26 care customers purchase cars since Q4 of 2019. You know, like I said on the other slide, our rebate is $3,500, which is a nice rebate. But where we really start to unlock opportunities for customers is when they layer that rebate on top of some of the other rebates that are available out there. So through the state, our customers that qualify via income can get up to $4,500. And what we managed to do with our program is create one application that allows our customers to apply for the CVRP, which is the state rebate, and our rebate with that same application. So that really makes things easier for customers when they're looking to purchase a car. And we want to continue doing that. This is really what makes these cars cost competitive to gas cars. And so going forward, we're going to look at opportunities to co-market our program with other vehicle rebates, such as the Clean Cars for All program, where if our customers are turning over an old gas vehicle and replacing it with an EV, they can qualify for quite a high rebate, up to $9,500, that would then stack on top of those other rebates as well. And I wanted to just offer up one case study of one of the projects that's gone through our program. So this is a case study for the city of Richmond. There were 6 charging ports at this location on a old discontinued networks. They were not functional, and the city was interested in upgrading them to a newer network station. In the course of doing that, they doubled the number of ports by putting 2 ports instead of 1 on each post. These chargers are enrolled in MCE's Deep Green electricity service. MCE covered 89% of the cost of these chargers. Oops, I think we went backwards. Thank you. So what's next for the electric vehicle program? We are continuing to seek out co-funding to expand the reach of our vehicle charging program. We applied for funding from the CEC through the Cali VIP program for 2021. Unfortunately, the pandemic really threw the state's budget for a loop, and the decision making on that program has changed and been pushed out. It is still possible we will get co-funding for Napa and Solano counties in 2021, but regardless, our application still stands, and we're continuing to advocate for it for all of our counties, either in 2021 or we'll continue to do so for funding in 2022. We're also looking for opportunities to pilot some programs looking at school bus electrification and resiliency. So this was an idea that came up in the development of our battery storage program that wasn't, quite ready for widespread adoption, but we would like to pilot it. This involves electrifying school buses and using those as a battery, basically a mobile battery in the event of a power shutoff or a PSPS event. And then lastly, we're helping our customers access revenue through the low carbon fuel standard market. MCE's Deep Green product received certification as a zero carbon intensity pathway through that program in May, which basically means that large charging station operators who might be buying RECs to qualify for this market can now sign up for MCE's Deep Green service and get more value out of the market than they were without MCE. So it's a great marketing effort for those large charging station operators, and we've seen some interest already. It's a little less accessible for some of the smaller sites that we see going through our program. For example, the case study that I showed earlier. So we're looking at ways where MCE can be the actor that helps those customers access this market. And what that would look like is we would be able to offer additional money up front to help get those projects completed, because MCE would be capturing the value through the market on the back end. So moving on to some programs that we offer for our large customers focused on energy efficiency. One of our newer programs is called Strategic Energy Management. And this is a program that offers one-on-one energy coaching for some of our largest customers. It requires a 2-year commitment during which a representative from that company will attend quarterly workshops and trainings. We compensate them for their time, and we focus on finding low to no cost operational savings at those sites. And we also help them with any costs and provide cash rebates and payments for achieved savings. And this program operates in groups. We call them cohorts. Our first group launched last November, and we have 7 large customers enrolled. For a sense of scale here, the collective energy consumption is over 44,000 megawatt hours for those enrolled companies and over 1.5 million therms per year. Of that group, we have identified about 30 to 65 opportunities per customer. So again, these are operational, they're low to no cost, but they have really significant benefits. So just one of these customers enrolled in the cohort, if they were to do all of the interventions identified, they could save $320,000 a year in operational energy costs. And so we're really excited about this program. We've been getting good feedback from the customers that are enrolled. We have 3 large customers lined up for our second group and 6 additional strong leads, but referrals are welcome. If you are aware of a large business who may be interested, please let them know about this opportunity. So that last program, Strategic Energy Management, is really focused on operational savings. We also have our energy savings program for businesses that focuses on equipment upgrades. So this program, we've done 82 projects since January of 2019 and paid out $286,000 in rebates to customers. Those projects have generated savings equal to, in total, about $95,000 a year in savings for those businesses. And the types of equipment that we're helping our customers upgrade include lighting, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, refrigeration, and food service equipment. Moving on to some of the programs that we offer to our residential customers. This is another new program. This is an sort of informational behavioral program in which we send emails to our customers that draws on their energy consumption data to provide them with information about how they're using energy in their home, give them tips on how to save energy, how to be more energy efficient. And this email goes out right now to over 60,000 of our customers. We targeted this email towards customers that, based on our usage, have a likelihood to, or seem likely to be able to have opportunities to save energy in their home. And the expected savings from this program, we, on average, across those 60,000 customers, we would expect to see about 2% savings per household on average, which translates to 4,000 megawatt hours or 56,000 therms. And so this chart shows the emails that were delivered on various dates. And what's really important, and the reason why I included this, is we don't just send the emails out one time per month. We actually, as you know, MC, I'm sure you all are aware that we now have a technology and analytics department. We've made some really great strides in accessing and using and handling our data. And so what we are now able to do is crunch the data and send out these emails within a certain number of days of that customer receiving their bill. So the information they're getting is really relevant and timely. It's not kind of stale and unclear what it connects to. So that's really the point of this, is just to show that we send these emails out on a rolling basis, aligned with the customer's billing cycle. And then we have we call this our direct install program, but what it is it's a program that installs equipment in our customers' homes at no cost, so equipment that will help them save energy. And we target this program at middle income customers. We do that sort of geographically. We look at areas where homes are likely to have a household income between 80 and 120% of the area median income. And then we go in and we offer these measures for free, or this equipment for free. Between October 2019 and March of this year, we installed 170 free smart thermostats in customers' homes. Obviously, we had to change a few things about this program with the shelter-in-place order. While we were able to keep a lot of our business programs going, it was just not really feasible to be sending folks into homes at this time. So coinciding with the shelter-in-place order, we have pivoted to send kits to customers with most of the measures. We don't actually send out kits with smart thermostats because they require a little bit more assistance with installation. But we're doing faucet aerators and shower heads by mail, and then using that kit to develop a pipeline of customers whose homes, when it is safe to do so, we will go back and install the smart thermostat. We also are looking for next year to add duct sealing and insulation to the list of measures that we can install for free. And then lastly, our multifamily energy efficiency program. So since January of 2019, we have done 14 projects at market rate properties, paying out just about $350,000 in rebates. The savings at each of those properties will average over $1,000 a year. We also have a program that runs in conjunction with that that's specifically for affordable multifamily properties. And through that program, we've done projects at 16 properties and paid out just about $500,000 in rebates. And this program has a big focus on heat pumps and upgrading the space heating at these properties to be clean and electric. So through this program, we've installed 114 heat pumps and have another 151 in the pipeline to be completed before the end of this program cycle. And those are my updates for this evening. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alice. An incredible amount of good work being done by you and your team. Really impressive. Comments or questions from board members for Alice? Okay, not seeing any hands. Do we have anyone from the
question?
Okay.
I have a question.
You go.
First, probably in 8 years. Alice, was that Catahoula coffee?
Yes, I believe it was.
I thought so. I recognized it. Thank you.
Arlene, you zero in on what matters the most.
Yes, coffee.
I know. Yeah, exactly. All right. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on this item? Seeing none, I think this is discussion only. So thank you, Alice. We've been looking forward to an update, and that was very comprehensive. I really appreciate it, and I hope you and your team can keep up the good work. There's a lot going on there. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Unless there are any other board matters and staff matters, one thing I did want to note, we have a policy update on regulatory and legislative items at the very end of our packet, and I think we also received an email with links to all the regulatory filings that have been done the last couple of months. Just scrolling through that made me feel exhausted. Shalini, you and your team and CalCCA, it's unbelievable the amount of legal work that is being done in regulatory proceedings. It's just dazzling, and I encourage everyone to at least scroll through that email and get a sense of how busy everyone is and the activism and the good brain power that's going into protecting our interests. So thank you. All right, anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we're adjourned, and we will see each other in September, at least virtually.
Good night, everybody.
Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
You too.
Good night, everybody.